This is the podcast overview for week 10. We will be covering chapter 12, social psychology. Here is the to-do list for this week. So let's go through this a little bit here. You're obviously reading chapter 12, social psych, and then you're also going to be reading Hawk number 10.4, which is obey at any cost. And I have a little bit more to talk about in just a minute because those are connected to some videos for this week. But first, here are your learning objectives for the chapter. You can click here for an overview. I go over all of these. Here are your lecture slides for the chapter. And then here's where the videos start. Now, I would advise you doing the reading first before you watch the videos. So you want to read chapter 12 and you want to read that Hawk reading. The Hawk reading is all about the Milgram studies. So you're going to want to have a really good base understanding and knowledge of that study before you dive into watching the videos. Now, this video here is a modern day take on the Milgram studies. So Dr. Jerry Berger reran the Milgram study very recently. I think it was 2007, and wanted to see what he found and how it compared to what Milgram found. He also used women, which the original Milgram study did not. So there's some differences there. So I want you to be watching the video and be looking to see how was it set up similar to the Milgram study? What were the conditions? You know, this is an experimental study. So what were the different groups? What was the hypothesis? Dependent variables, independent variables, and what did they find with this new study? How did it compare to the findings of the original Milgram study? Okay, and then all of that will be tied to your discussion post for this week. I also posted a video on prejudice and racism. So social psych encompasses a lot. You can spend a whole semester just on social psych. It's everything from relationships to obedience to authority, conformity, prejudice, racism, how we think in a social setting, so social cognition and social perception, group dynamics and group behavior. So it's really packed with a lot. So I tried to give you a good sampling of different videos in some of the various key areas of social psych. And this video here is the original Jane Elliott study that she did with her third grade classroom, looking at the modeling of prejudice and where the root and the stem of prejudice might lie in terms of modeling others' behaviors when you're young. So take a look at that video, and this is also talked about in the chapter as well. And then I have Ash's conformity experiment, very short, the original experiment on how we conform to others. And then we have a video on bystander intervention. So another piece of social psychology is helping behavior or bystander behavior. You know, what do you do when somebody's in trouble, there's an emergency, and who helps is the basic question there. But it also is related to an area called pro-social behavior. How do we act pro-socially in favor of others and in a helping way? That could be volunteerism, community service, random acts of kindness, and definitely the emergency help situation. And then a video on social facilitation and social loafing, two key concepts in social psychology of what tends to happen when we operate within groups or when we operate in a setting where people are watching us. How does that affect our behavior? And then I gave you a couple crash course videos, one on social thinking and one on social influence. So again, it's going to mimic here some of the Stanley Milgram stuff and some of the Ash conformity studies. And then one on prejudice and discrimination. and then one on aggression and altruism. Now these are short, they're each, less than 10 minutes. These are really great. These are like all the key areas in social psychology. So I think you're really gonna get a lot out of watching these. And again, I would recommend reading the chapter and the Hawk reading first before you dive into these videos. And then your discussion for this week is focused on the Milgram study. So here you're going to integrate not only the Hawk reading, but also your textbook in looking at Hawk number 10.4, Obey at Any Cost. So you're going to be describing all the factors, the different situational factors, so things due to the situation, and then dispositional factors, things due to the person, personality, who the person is, that contribute to people's tendencies to obey authority versus not obey. So you're looking at, I want you to talk about what kinds of things make people obey or not obey. Why is it that some people do obey and some people don't? Is it something about the person, a dispositional factor, or are there elements in the situation that might cause someone to obey or not obey? So you're going to talk about those, and you're going to use your book and use the Hawk book as a support and find some examples there for support to inform your answers. And then number 2, how do you think people today would respond to the Milgram experiment? Key note there is that the Jerry Berger study that you're going to be watching in the video, that is how people respond today. So you're going to want to watch that video before you attempt to answer this question. And then lastly, describe at least one event in the recent 10 years that mirrors the Milgram study. So what has happened? It's been an event that's happened in the last 10 years where obedience to authority was sort of pushed to the limit, right? Where people maybe obeyed even though they didn't want to. That would be something that mirrors the Milgram study. So your task is to go beyond the scope of the class and find something in the media within the last 10 years that mirrors the Milgram study. All right, you have, after that, just your quiz number 9 on chapter 12, and that will wrap up the week. As usual, please let me know if you have any questions about anything this week.